Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Bernotas. I'm the Director of Instrumental School Methods and Repertoire for Alfred Music, and I'm really excited to be here with one of our incredible authors, Patrick Roszell. Patrick is an internationally published composer and arranger of band, orchestra, and choral literature. His arrangements and compositions have been performed at the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic, the Music for All National Concert Festival, and they've also appeared on J.W. Pepper's Editor's Choice list for band and orchestra. Patrick, thanks for joining us today.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
It's nice to have been having you. That's part of the light, fun part of this conversation. So our 5 questions with Patrick Roszell is going to kick off with our first question of, who was your most influential music teacher and why?
Well, I've actually had the opportunity to study with several, Robert W. Smith and Ralph Ford in the industry, and Dr. James Woodward at Jacksonville State. If I have to choose 2, which I would have to do 2, the first is my high school band director, Mr. Bill Barker. He used to look over all of my arrangements in high school and would allow me to raid the music library in the back of the band room, and just always give me some really good pointers on the arranging stuff that I was doing back then. And then my second was my first theory and comp teacher at Jacksonville State University, Dr. Gerald Davis, who sadly is no longer with us. But Gerald was a oboe guy, and his family were Kentucky tobacco farmers. But Gerald wound up going to Eastman. And so he really drilled a lot of theory and voicing and all that stuff into my head. So those 2 are probably the most influential on me. Sadly, as I said, Gerald's no longer with us, so he hasn't seen anything I've written.
Oh, it would have been nice to be able to share.
Yes, it would have been. My high school band director, he's still kicking, and I send him stuff. I feel bad sometimes because I feel like I'm annoying him, because he's been retired for 20-something years, but every time he's like, "Man, I like it. Just keep doing what you're doing." So,
well, it's good. It's good to keep that relationship. And this, after doing a number of these kind of conversations, there's a lot of commonality that we're all influenced and still in touch with our high school director, or sometimes it's a middle school director, but some sort of teacher that's you made that connection with. And I think for teachers that watch this, and that you don't ever forget how important your influence is on future adults. And that's great to be able to hear. That's awesome. And I can only imagine what a difference it was going from the tobacco fields in Kentucky to Eastman. That'd be a conversation I would want to have. Like, what noticeable differences are there?
Well, I'm sure there were many.
Oh, yeah. All right, number 2. Being both a band director and a composer and arranger, how have your own students and classroom experience, I guess that's 2 questions, how have your own students and classroom experience influenced your writing?
I would have to say massively. Many of the pieces that I've written over the past 5 years have actually been for my group. It comes down sometimes to I want to teach a certain concept. Mm-hmm. I'm lucky enough that I can go sit down and write a piece and have them do it. I always think about that with scales. Several years ago, we were trying to learn our scales in the band, and even the more disliked of D flat and those types of scales. But I did a piece called Autumn Rains, and the middle section of it was clarinets just playing scales, and it worked out pretty well in that setting. But yeah, I mean, I can look at scores very easily now that I've taught, and just identify, the spots and this, that, and the other. But yeah, most everything I've written for the past 5 years, I would say, has, I don't know if say fortunately or unfortunately, but my kids have had to endure it.
Did they ever tell you like, oh, we really like this one, or this one, it's not so great? Or
I tell you, I did a piece I don't know, years ago, called Thor's Hammer.
Hmm.
And they want to play it every spring concert. And I'm afraid that's going to happen with Raining Tacos this year.
You and probably a lot of other directors are afraid that that's going to happen.
Yeah, most definitely.
But that's nice. It's great, having taught also. It's nice to have like the kids right there. And my kids were never shy about giving me feedback. And I think that's kind of speaks to you as a teacher, that you're willing to have that conversation with them and also accept their viewpoint. I mean, this is for teachers and for students. Right. So there's teachable moments, but they also have to have some kind of appeal, and I think it's nice to be able to have that interaction with them. And that's, sure. I think that's something that makes your music really strong, is it's got those both elements kind of put together with it. How's this going to look from, I always used to say, like, I look at it on both sides of the stand. You have the teacher, and then it's the student that's looking at the music on this side. So kind of putting that together is really helpful.
And they will tell you, this sounds like that last one you did.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, oh boy.
Whoops. And that moment of paranoia comes in, like, yes. Oh my God, did I steal from myself? Did I steal from somebody else? Oh my gosh, I hope I didn't. And then you like have to listen to everything to make sure. No, if you steal from yourself a little bit, that's okay. That's called style. Right. There's no infringement on it. You're okay.
Exactly.
So that leads to my next question, number 3. When you start to write a piece, I think people are always interested. These are kind of nerdy conversations that we all wind up having. What is your compositional process? How do you start?
Well, it's always interesting because I think that's the psychological part of composition. Where does the stuff come from? How does it start? Going back to one of my teachers, to Gerald, he was fortunate enough that he owned 2 9-foot Steinway grands. When he passed, one of them was left to me in his will.
Oh, wow.
So that chunk of furniture is sitting in my living room. So many times I will start chords. I'll go and play chords. I'm a huge Elton John fan. I think his chords are extremely interesting, especially some of the deep cuts stuff that he does. But I'll just start playing chords, or if it's a melody that I've got. And I still am kind of an old school guy. I do start with a pencil and paper. I still do. I still like to do that. And then I will eventually move to finale and start orchestrating out that way. But it goes back to teaching. I teach in a very small band program, and I have to cover instruments. Mm-hmm. So as I'm writing, I'm thinking too, especially if it's developing band music. Do I need to cover this line somewhere else? But yeah, the whole process is just that. It starts 9 times out of 10 for me. It's just chords, and then the melody comes in. But that's kind of how it starts.
Yeah, that's great. That makes me think also of kids when they learn like their first 3 notes on an instrument. They'll walk around, because my kids are doing it now, playing those couple notes and just improvising and making up tune after tune after tune. And one of the things that I try to think about with that is, like, the more kids learn, the less they are creative with it. So how can we keep them creative? That improvisational, just noodling around and seeing where it leads to, is kind of where a lot of good ideas come from. And it's kind of when you just kind of free your mind of it. And, I think it's important that that's that 9-foot Steinway that came from your influential teacher. I mean, that's just sitting there alone is probably like a zone you kind of go into.
And it is.
It's like peaceful, right? Or it's just a place where you can check out and unlock, unsuffocate your brain from all the rules and everything that should happen, and just go. I think that's inspirational, and it's also kind of empowering for people to hear that. Don't forget to be creative, which is a weird thing to say to musicians, but kind of embrace that.
And how many pieces have been influenced by a slip of a finger?
Oh yeah.
I didn't mean to play that note, but it's cool. There it is.
I didn't mean to hit that one, but that sounds really cool. That's now a new chord. What is that? A flat 9 sharp 17. We'll go with that.
Yep, exactly.
That's awesome. For me, writing wise, you mentioned chordal writing. you can't see it over here. I have a keyboard on my desk. It is not a 9-foot Steinway. Mine is a 61 key M audio. But sometimes chords are too much, so I go to a single note instrument,
Right.
which for me is trumpet. So that leads to my next question, which is, because I know you're a trumpet player also, if you didn't play trumpet, what would have been your other instrument of choice?
Ooh, I would have to say probably saxophone. It's one of those instruments that when it's played extremely well, it's beautiful. And when it's not, it's horrible. Uh, so I would have to say saxophone. Clarinet would be a close second in there. But yeah, of course, that's always been the joke. How many arrangers and composers are trumpet players?
Too many?
Maybe, I don't know. Not going to touch that one.
That's right. No, I'm glad that we're able to do this as trumpet players. So
Oh,
you can see, even in my background over here, I've got a violin, which has been like lately a lot of fun to play around on and learn and continue to develop on that. So we never stop learning. All right, to our fifth and final question, because I know you also have another critic of your musical writings in your house.
Yes.
Your barometer of talent, and does this sound like your last piece? I know when you go to Midwest, you and Lauren, your wife, like to go on food tour. You plan some time to explore. So what would be your favorite Chicago food destination? And this is probably a tougher one, your favorite meal that you've had while there?
Well, as you mentioned, my wife and I are both band directors. So vacation time does not happen as most people would think. We finish school in May. We have a few weeks off for June. Band camp starts back up in July. And living here in Alabama, football is rules our lives for 10 to 12 weeks. So vacation is not always plausible, but we always try to take a little extra time for Midwest in Chicago. And one of our favorite things to do is to get to the hotel, drop the bags, and we walk up Michigan Avenue. We typically stay at the Hilton there on Michigan Avenue, and we walk up to the Magnificent Mile. And there is just this incredible restaurant. It's called the Purple Pig.
Ooh, all right.
And they have this incredible, it's roasted bone marrow. I know that's not popular with a lot of people, but it's just incredible. And we just pig, and we just absolutely, it's almost embarrassing. But then we just go out and we just walk the Miracle Mile and, take it up. But that's always incredible. I think you asked me about the best meal, and I made a list of them here. We always go to a place called Side Door. Let me pull my list up here. We go to a place called Side Door, which is, again, it's right off Michigan Ave. And it's actually the side door of Lowry's Steakhouse.
Oh, okay.
So you walk down past Lowry's, and basically you turn right, and it's the side door. But the food is incredible. And of course, I always try to do Lou Mitchell's at least once for breakfast. I have dreams about their corned beef hash. Literally, I have had dreams about it. I think our big meal that we do is a place called Prime and Provision. I mean, Chicago, it's a beef town. You've got to go have a steak in Chicago. That is the day that we don't eat anything.
You just save it up
all day. We might sniff something for breakfast. But yeah, because it's a big meal. It's a 3 or 4 course meal, and always have a steak. Lauren will probably have lamb chops or something. But yeah, that's always the big one. It's just like, and then we walk Michigan Avenue back. I mean, we try to, for that week, we try to enjoy Chicago as much as possible. We take public transportation everywhere we walk. But yeah, those are the places we love to hit. And we typically will try to find something new every year, but those are your
go-tos.
Yes.
And that's the list that I'm going to write down for when we get back to Chicago next time. 'Cause I go to different places every year, so it's good to get recommendations. That is really awesome. And now I'm super hungry, so I'm going to have to.
There you go.
My wife already decided we're not cooking tonight. So, and she
Okay.
just left a little while ago and said, all right, think about what you want to get tonight. So I'm going to start thinking. All right, well, that's going to wrap up our 5 questions. So thanks for hanging out with me today. I think it's going to be, it's always great to see you, and it's not as good as in person, but hey, this is better than nothing.
Yeah,
So,
it is what it is right now with the Zoom.
That's right. All right, well, thanks again, and everybody, we'll see you next time.
All right, see you.